we do go back to when Angie and I and all of us were down at PLC in Fresno, and Joe and Luana were down there with us, so it's always good to have old friends back. And Lori, I got to tell you, that stuff you had on Facebook when you had blonde hair, oh, you're even more powerful if that's possible.
Oh, younger.
Oh, so this month we're talking about consciousness as always, but we have, our topics are communion with Source, spiritual transformation. I'm like Angie, let me stumble over the beginning and get them out of the way. And then shifting consciousness. So I don't know if you've noticed that while we're using different words and different approaches, over the last few months we've been hammering away at a basic theme. And this theme is that no matter who you are or where you are or what you're doing, that it boils down to this one foundational principle or action or non-action. And that is a beingness where you're truly being within Source, within God. When I used to be upset, I had this favorite meditation or visualization that I did. And I would be like sitting, with your knees done and down, and I would just float up into the middle of the universe, in the middle of space. And I would sit there in this wondrous quiet that had like a low hum. But none of the distressing noises that are down here, none of that sharp, jarring stuff. It was so peaceful. And as I would sit there, I'd see stars and I'd see planets. And then as I got deeper into it, there started to be movement. This beautiful, glorious colors of gold and wheels wheeling everywhere as the universe was turning. Stars moving and exploding and shooting and meteors, but like a slow dance. There was no rush to it. It was just this glorious movement with this beautiful and soothing low hum. And I was in the middle of this. And I'm going there right now, actually, as I'm talking about it. Mm-hmm. It was a settling into. And the more that I did this, the less I was sanding. The body drifted away. The personality wasn't there. The need to have my individual space. The need to be individual. It was all going away. And eventually, I would spend the longest time without anything but being one little piece of this marvelous, glorious creation that was all around me. This is the true meaning of being one with God, of communing with Source. It's in this beingness that's very active in a way because we're part of it, but we're not actively doing. And in this moment, anything and everything is possible, but you don't have that thought process. It's a knowingness that goes down into the cells of the body, that goes into what I think I was then. I wasn't looking at myself, but I think I had turned into an orb of energy, that I was just a star there, or a planet, like all of the other that was there. This is what we want everyone to get. That it is so important to have this beingness connection. Down here we're so busy being action-oriented, achieving, goal-oriented. But after a while we burn out. You can only keep that up for so long without being recharged. That's why we do the meditation. That's why we say quiet time. Go out and hug a tree. Put your feet in a stream. Whatever it is that soothes you and allows you to relax. When we're in communion with God, we are totally immersed and relaxed. And that, if you don't get anything else today, is to have some inkling of how important this is to our wholeness and our healing and our well-being. Then, of course, we have the action steps. So we have this foundation of communion, and then I translate the direct action to communion with Source into communication with Source. That's where we get into our prayer work. That's where we get into our direct consciousness of connecting, of talking to Source, as Joe says, of asking for the things that we need and accepting it. This is a communication transfer, whether you actually have words or not. We have this information process going on all of the time. We get it intuitively, we get it psychically, we get it with words, we get it with signs, but we're being communicated with continuously from this fountain that knows all there is to know. All the wisdom is there, all the answers are there. We don't create outside of this. The creation is within it. We recognize it, or listen to it, or have a knowing, and then we translate that into something. Like this little electronic thing that does so many wonderful things. But it needs us. So it's important that we recharge, that we have a basis from what we can build. But then, to live in this world, it's also important that we do action steps. So it's a balancing act. How do we bring them together? We don't have time to spend all time in meditation. You got to pay the rent, you got to eat, you got to do the shopping, you got to do the errands. So we balance it. And when we get used to hearing it, it's there all the time. So you can do short little things of the remembering or the connection. But as we communicate, we build on that then. And then we start looking at the other action steps of transformation, of shifting, of evolving. It's a process that we continuously revolve through with each little thing that we do. There's something that tells us that something's wrong in our world, our communication. It's saying you're off track. Things aren't working right for you. You could be healthier, or you could be doing any of these things, or not. But there's something that comes to us that in some way we interpret that we're not doing, or we should be doing, whatever it is that we do, that makes us think. So, I'll use myself for example. When I was drinking, it came down for me that I either had to have the courage to kill myself, or I had to heal. It was that painful at that point. My life had been full of pain, and I drank for a number of reasons. My psychic abilities were coming in, and I couldn't handle them. I was in a domestic violence situation. I had pain from childhood. We all have this. I'm not any different than anybody else. We all have the things that become a mountain for us that we can't surmount. But it came down to that point. And at that point, I remembered thinking, okay, I don't have the courage to kill myself. I have to do something. The sun's coming in. You know how it always is in those pivotal moments that you remember? It's like you're in this ray of light, you know, and you get this big incoming. But I thought I'd had experienced pain before. It was nothing like the healing journey. But the trick is we keep putting one foot in front of the other. We get up every morning. We learn to ask for help. We learn to risk. We learn to share. It was very hard for me. I came up in a family where you didn't talk about things. You weren't sharing outside of yourself. It was, you could talk to siblings, but only so far because we each had our own vision, but you didn't talk to other people. I had to be forced to get help. And thank heavens for the legal system, I was forced. Because if that hadn't happened, my defense system was so strong, it would not have broken. I could not have opened the dam to let the help that I needed come in, to let it reach me. So when we talk about spirit moving in mysterious ways, and we don't know what the silver lining is, and we don't know what the lesson is, when you look back on it, you see very clearly and you go, thank you, thank you, thank you. If those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. If those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't have the happiness factor that I have today. I wouldn't be able to love like I can love today. I wouldn't be able to love myself like I can love myself today. that I can look at myself in the mirror now and smile and not have to cringe and think about all the terrible things I've done recently, all the people I've hurt. All of that is behind me. So, or maybe not. I'm still evolving and still in process. But the point is, no matter how high or big that mountain looks, it eventually becomes a molehill. It gets smaller and smaller. I'm not climbing like this anymore. It's more like this gentle, loving way of doing it. So as we do these steps, and that are smaller ones, you know about short-term goals, long-term goals, different goals for different things. Your healing is the same way. Spiritual evolution is the same way. We learn. A lot of times we're in situations to learn what we don't want to do and what we don't want to be. We never know why we're there. But if you can hold on to the fact that everything is perfect for its stage of expression, for the consciousness that it is, and flow with it, life becomes easier. Instead of fighting everything, I don't want this, why is this happening to me? Becoming a victim. Flow with it. The more we flow, the more we open ourselves up, the easier it gets. Where last week things were terrible, this week they're good, and they can get better. And it doesn't happen overnight. You'll see it like in 6 months. 6 months you look back and you go, you know, I haven't had as many arguments with my boyfriend, kids, spouse, whatever. I'm doing better at work and people are leaving me alone. I'm happier and things are coming to me. Money's flowing. That's what healing is. It's this gradual thing that happens. It's not something that happens overnight. We'd go crazy if it happened overnight. How would we handle it? How would all of the broken parts be able to come together in a healing way? It takes time to adapt. Think of it as you want your fingernails to look good. It takes a while to get the jagged edges off and then decide how to get them healthy and to work with it till they're the way you want them to look. Then you get into doing them all the time and maintaining them so they're always looking pretty good. But you know, if they're acrylics, they still flip off. They still jay. They still have chips. That's what we are as humans. We're constantly being refaceted. We're like this diamond that looks different every week because something's changed. A different facet, a different way of doing it, a different rainbow shining out as we gloriously become more and more and more of who and what we are. It's what we're here to do. It's what we help with here. That's why the practitioners are so willing to help with prayer treatment or listening or those things, because we need to be heard, we need to be seen, we need to be loved, to have the support system that we need to make this journey. It's always easier with friends and people you can talk to and share with. It's a glorious experience. I used to say, I'm going out of this world, and if I'm low crawling out, I don't care. But I'm not coming back and doing any of the specific things over. Whatever it is, I want to get it. Let me get the message. Let me get the healing. Let me get whatever I'm supposed to be doing here. Because, and this was real with me, because in some of my out-of-body stuff, I've gone to some of the libraries. And you can see things in them. And I don't want to ever show up at this big cosmic crystal library or whatever it is and look at Sandy in this world and think, she was almost there. She missed it by this much. If she had persevered or learned one more thing, man, she would have been summa cum laude, but she didn't make it. And that drives me. When I'm fighting something, I think, oh God, Sandy, do you want to do this over again? Do you want to come back? Do you want to go experience it in some other world?